What's going on, everyone? It's Ben from YGO from Zero, back with another Retro Yu-Gi-Oh video, and this is a very exciting one, as it's my first foray into Chaos format. Now, I released a guide to Chaos format on my channel over the weekend, and definitely check that out if you are interested in what new cards Chaos format introduces to the game. But, there's a difference between discussing the cards on a top-down level and discussing actual gameplay, and that's what we're going to have here today. Now, whenever I like to start a new format, I like to begin by playing the deck that topped the last event, and the deck that topped the last Chaos event was this deck by Ellie Tin Can. This is a Chaos control list, and this is generally the most popular style of deck in this format, as it's just incredibly powerful. Chaos format saw the release of Black Soldier Envoy at the beginning, and also Chaos Emperor Dragon Envoy at the end, and these two boss monsters are just incredibly strong and very easy to bring out, as long as you're playing a suitable number of lights and darks, and that's what this deck is doing. So let's just quickly go through the card by card, but a lot of this deck should be relatively straightforward. It's just playing basically all the good cards in this format and not playing the bad ones. So to start off with, we've got Black Soldier Envoy at the beginning. This is a 3,000 attack, 2,500 defense monster that you can bring out by banishing one light and one dark monster from your graveyard, and then once per turn you can activate one of these effects. The first one being target one monster on the field, banish it. This card cannot attack the turn this effect is activated, and the other being if this attacking card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can make a second attack in a row. Both of those effects can be very strong in different situations, and so I do think that this is a very good card. But arguably it's worse than the other Chaos boss monster in the set, Chaos Emperor Dragon Envoy at the end. This is a 3,000 attack, 2,500 defense monster. You can be brought out by banishing one light and one dark monster from your graveyard. And then once per turn, you can pay 1,000 life points, send as many cards in both players' hands and on the field as possible to the graveyard, then inflict 300 damage to your opponent for each card sent to the opponent's graveyard, or to the graveyard, not just the opponent's graveyard, by this effect. This card did receive an errata later on in its history, which is why it has this, to the opponent's graveyard thing. But at this point in time, it's just to the graveyard. And also, you can indeed activate other cards and effects during the turn you use this effect. So this card is very strong. It could be a great finisher, just closing out the game by dealing a ton of damage and then dealing even more damage with its effect. So it's very good. Moving on to the standard monster, we've got Breaker the Magical Warrior. That is a good dark that can act as spell and trap removal. We got Triple DD Warrior Lady serving as lights. Now this is a little bit awkward, as DD Warrior Lady is often going to be banishing itself, so you do want another light in the deck as well, and that's why we're also playing double Shining Angel. Shining Angel can be used to bring out DD Warrior Lady, so you get a great removal option off this card, and also it is a light for your graveyard. The unfortunate thing about Shining Angel is that it can be banished off of a Warrior Lady. That's something to keep in mind, but it's still pretty decent and one of the premier light targets that people are playing in this format. Next up, we've got Exiled Force here, just a great sort of searchable removal option. We've got Injection Fairy Lily to deal more damage. We've got Double Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer. This card is insanely good this format. It's a dark 1800 attack, which is nothing to scoff at, and it says when this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can target up to 2 monsters in their graveyard, banish those targets. Your opponent cannot banish cards from either graveyard. And that is a very powerful effect to just shut down your opponent's chaos strategy, and also it's just a big beater as well, so very good here. We also got Magical Scientist. This is a level 1 dark monster that lets you pay 1,000 life points to special summon out level 6 or lower fusion monsters from your extra deck. And Ellie Tin Can's list is, playing a standard suite of them, but there are generally more toolboxy options you can go into here. And also, there are things like Guilty of the D-Knight. That's a light target that, will occasionally come up if you want to bring that out. But, in this format, the fusion deck wasn't limited. So if you do need one of those options, you can always, proxy it in, just using, a different fusion monster, like a token or something. And, you and your opponent can just, look up the stats and effects of whatever card you're proxying in. But I think it's generally better just to have a toolbox of all the fusion monsters that could potentially come up in your extra deck there. And, in other videos, I've shown off that sort of fusion toolbox extra deck. So you can check those. And also, I'll be releasing decks of my own later on in this channel. So I'll be having the full extra deck there. But the main things that you need to know in the extra deck for Scientists are the Balters, which can negate opponent's monster effects, 1,000 Understrix, which can suck up their monsters, Ryu Sentry, which can negate their traps, and Dark Flare Knight, which is the highest stat line on a monster you can bring out off Scientist. Things like Fiend Skull Dragon can occasionally come up as well, as they can negate traps that target and also flip effects. But these are the main ones that you need to know about. But in my future videos, I will be having the full extra deck, laden with all the toolboxy cards you could want. Moving on to the other main deck monster, we got Sangam, which is Black Force. Search out a variety of things from your deck. We got Double Shining Angels, as I mentioned, for the light targets. Since Serpent to pair with the Tribe Infecting Virus can be very, very good there. And for these spells, we've got basically a suite of just very, very powerful spells. We got Change of Heart, Confiscation, Dark Hole, Delinquent Duo, Graceful Charity, Harpy Feather Duster, Mirage of Nightmare, Monster Reborn, Triple MST to pair with the Mirage of Nightmare. We've got Painful Choice, we've got Pot of Greed, Premature Burial, Raigeki, Snatch Steal, and Forceless Sentry. And, you know, I mean, you can't really go wrong with those sorts of cards there. Now, that being said, like, some of these cards I do kind of disagree with being in the main deck here. But I'll discuss that after I show off some games to sort of see why I might think that way. But moving on to the traps, we get Call the Haunted Imperial Order, Mirror Force, Ring of Destruction. Those are pretty much the standard 4 that you'll see in almost every deck, although some decks do potentially cut Call the Haunted. And also Double Torrential Tribute as just a great blowout card to stop your opponent's aggressive pushes. For the side decks, pretty straightforward. We have the third Torrential Tribute plus 3 Sakuretsu Armor for more aggressive decks. We've got Double Moment of Cross that can be good to bring in if you know you're going second. Also very good against flip focus strategies. We've got Fiber Jar as well. Can be good to bring in going second to help you recover from hand rips and stuff. We got Yata as well, which can also be good going second. We've got Kaiku and Skill Dark Condition if you want more Dark Beaters. We got Double Magician of Faith if you're playing a bit of a slower, grindier game and can bring back powerful spells. And we got the Chaos Sorcerer if we are bringing in like more lights and darks. We also got the Double Rhoda here to search out any of your powerful warrior monsters like Exiled Force, like DD Warrior Lady. And that's going to do it for the deck breakdown. I think this deck is pretty good. There are some potential changes that I would make after playing with it a little bit. But let's dive into the games so you can sort of see my reasoning for those potential changes. Okay, first game we got here is against Rago Drago, a frequent guest on the channel. Always a pleasure to have them on. We are going to go into Rock, Paper, Scissors, and we do win the Rock, Paper, Scissors. And the Rock, Paper, Scissors can be pretty good in this format, especially with the 3 hand rips running around. This was actually my first Chaos match that I played. So, you know, I was testing out this deck, and I think it was a pretty fun match. So, we are just going to open Shining Angel, plus Mirage of Nightmare and all spell traps. So what are we going to do? We're going to set them into Shining Angel, set everything, fire Mirage, and pass back to our opponent. Now, if they've got MST plus Harpies, that's going to be really rough for us. But, you know, sometimes you just got to play as if they don't have things like that. And they are indeed going to go for the MST on our Mirage. So now we've committed everything, and maybe we should have only set 3 of our back row here instead of all 4. They also have an Exile to deal with our Shining Angel there, so yeah, kind of rough for us. We have Comfy, so we can at least rip a card out of their hand. We get to see what they're working with. They've got a Comfy of their own, plus a Gravekeeper's Spy, and we want to send back the Spy as that's a monster here. And we don't have any cards in hand, so Comfy's a little bit less good for them. We're going to pass back to them, and they're going to fire Harpies. That is really bad for us. We're going to go for the MST here, popping their call there. And this makes me feel rough that we didn't fire Premature Burial last turn, bring back Shining Angel just to hit in. But yeah, we didn't do that because, you know, I felt like that was a low impact use of Premature, and if they had like MST or something, then that would eat that. But maybe it would have been good to do anyways. We draw 2-0 here, which is dead. And that eats an MST, so, you know, I'm not going to complain about that too much. Our opponent's just going to draw, pass back to us. We draw a BLS, pass back to them. Let's see what they do here. They're going to bring out a DD Warrior Lady, attack in for 1,500 here. Get in for that 1,500, pass back to us. We draw TT, so we're just going to set that, pass back to our opponent. And they're going to think about this a bit, and they're going to bring out a Witch. Now, we could potentially TT that, but that allows them to get a powerful search from their deck to hand, so I don't necessarily want to do that. I'd prefer just to draw into other things to deal with the Witch and Warrior Lady. But maybe we should have been good to do that here. I don't really know. It's a bit iffy. It's 2,600 is a lot of damage. They're going to go for the Comfy here, rip the BLS out of our hand, and we draw a Warrior Lady of our own. Now, we go for the set Warrior Lady here. We could have just summoned it out, attacking the Witch, and banished them both. But then they've got Warrior Lady and a 2-turn clock on us. So I don't necessarily want to do that. Also, Warrior Lady is a light, and they've already got a Dark Engrave, so if they've got a Chaos Monster, and that doesn't really work very well for us. So they're going to attack in to our Warrior Lady, and they are indeed going to banish here, and we are fine with that. They're going to attack in with the Witch as well, deal 1,100, pass back to us. We draw Mirror Force here. So, you know, another way to remove that Witch, and we will indeed go for that. We do think about exactly whether we want to or not, but I do think that 700 life points is a bit too low for us to reasonably be at. So we are going to Mirror Force that. They add a Breaker to hand. They're not going to commit it this turn here. We draw a Witch of our own, so that's very good. We'll be able to summon that, attack in for 1,100 here, and we'll pass back to them. They're going to bring out the Scientist here. They're not going to use Prio, which I think is smart. But, yeah, we have to go for the TT here as they've got enough life points to just go for Sentry plus Bolter, and that is a bit too extreme for us here. I guess we could have just taken it, and then just, they'd have to bring in another monster to actually kill us next turn, so we could have TT'd then, but I think it's better just to get the Witch Search here. We search out a Kaiku here. We do know about the Breaker in hand, unfortunately, but we want to like banish their cards from grave, given that we have the read that they're probably on a Chaos Monster in hand. And unfortunately, the Imperial Orb will not protect the IO from the Breaker, so kind of rough, but we kind of just have to go for it here. And maybe the Imperial Orb will be enough of a bluff to sort of get them to use the counter and put the Breaker below the Kaiku here. They're going to bring out a Breaker. They're going to fire the effect on our IO. And unfortunately, they got Change of Hearts. That will indeed be the end of the game. Maybe we could have gotten a different Witch Search there, but no matter what we got, it would die to that play. So, yeah, it wouldn't really have made a difference there. But that's going to be game 1. For game 2, I actually side out the Duo and the Premature Burial because both those cards were not that impressive to me that game. I understand that there are situations where they can be very good, especially since we are going first. Maybe it's good to keep Duo in. But I feel like Nobleman of Crossouts is just a higher impact card here, banishing cards, preventing them from hitting the grave. And Duo is just like, Duo lets them potentially get a light or dark in grave, set up for their plays, which is kind of rough. You don't get hand knowledge either. It costs 1,000 life points. So I'm not the biggest fan of Duo here. And Premature Burial, it dies to an MST. And also, it does also cost you life points too. And if you don't have many monsters in grave, Premature can be pretty bad. So yeah, I make those changes. I'm not sure if they're correct or not, but that is what I do. And we're going to go into game 2 and see how they work out for us. We draw a Nobleman, so that could potentially have been a Duo here. So if that comes back to bite us, that'll be pretty bad. We're just going to set a TT, set a Mirage, pass back to them. We got a couple options here. If they bring out a monster, we can TT it, or just, wait and exile to force it next turn. If they set a monster, we got Nobleman, we got exiled. So we got multiple ways to play this turn here. They've got Forceful. They're going to send back our exiled, which is a bit unfortunate as they paired very well with the Call of Haunted in hand. But that's probably why they sent it. They're just going to set 2, set 3, set 4, and fire a Mirage here. Pass back to us. Unfortunately, we do not have an MST of our own to clear that Mirage. They are going to be able to draw 4 here. We do have this Forceful in hand, though, to send back a card from their hand. So we're going to take a peek at what they're working with here. They got MST, Tribe, Ring, and Witch. Now, I have the read that they probably have an MST set. Because they've got full back row here. So I don't really feel the need to take the MST. I actually feel like the Witch is the highest impact target here, as I can search out a monster for them later. We can deal with the Tribe with something like ATT or the Ring in hand as well. But the Witch is very annoying. So we're just going to send back the Witch. They've got Ring, MST, and Tribe in hand now. And we're just going to pass back to them. We could have potentially set the Ring as well, but I think it is fine. They're going to go for the MST there, popping their Mirage. They're going to bring out a Tribe. We're going to go for TT here. They're going to call back the Tribe, which is quite unfortunate here. And they're going to attack in for 1,600, dealing that 1,600 a fifth of our life points. It's kind of rough. They're going to set 2, pass back to us. Oh, that is a pretty good draw here. We draw Harpies. We're just going to go for the Harpies there. They've got MST on the Mirage. I mean, we set the Mirage because it would likely die to an MST either way, and we didn't really have the tools to get full value off it. I think we are still in a pretty good position after that. So that Harpies will go through, clearing their entire board, and we are okay losing that Mirage there. We're just going to set a Ring, pass back to our opponent. We don't want to set the calls. We don't have anything to bring back from grave to change something like a Duster. And I feel fine just setting the Ring to play it safe. Our opponent's going to set 1, pass back to us. We draw Lily, so that's very good for us. We're just going to bring out Lily, attack in for 3,400 here. Now, if they've got a way to clear the Lily, it might be better to set the Call of the Haunted here to potentially go for the lethal line next turn. But I feel like this is ultimately fine. We're in a good enough spot. We don't need to do that. Unfortunately, they do have Regeki. They're going to set a monster, pass back to us. We draw Witch of the Black Forest here. And we're just going to bring out Witch. We got the Nox. We'll be able to banish their set monster. It is a Magical Scientist. Probably set that as they're taking 3,100 if we have the call set off the Lily. But either way here, they're in a rough spot. We're going to set the call for next turn to bring back the Lily. If they've got, Harpies, we can ring our own Witch, get a search, and be pretty good there. And unfortunately, they do not draw a way to deal with what we got. That's just going to be the end of the game. And very, very good one. I mean, Harpies kind of blew out the first 2 games either way, but we also did both get a little bit greedy off the Mirages there. So we're going to go into game 3, and I keep the side deck, the same, just the 2 Nox for the Duo plus pre-mat there. And I think that is, fine. I like Nox in the main deck, and I feel like everything else is okay. But this is why we're, testing out the winning list, because you never know what you'll want to change for the future with these sorts of things. So our opponent's going to draw, set 1, set another, pass back to us. We will draw an Imperial Orb, which is very good. We're going to go for Painful Choice here. Send 5, send Double Shining, a Scientist, a Kaiku, and a Serpent. We send the Serpent as well because they're probably going to give us the Serpent, but this also sets us up with Lights and Darks in Grave. So I feel ultimately fine about this. They're going to give us that Serpent. we get that to hand. Maybe we should send the hand rips as well. Like Serpent, double hand rips, a light and dark could have been good. But we want to have the banish on the Kaiku there. So we've got the banish on the Kaiku, and they're the banish for the BLS, that is. We're going to bring out that BLS, banish their set, and we just bring out the BLS in defense to, I mean, I don't really know what we're playing around, but I think it's ultimately fine. They don't have any, like, way to bring out a Chaos Monster on their turn, hopefully, so we should be good here. We're going to set the Serpent to play around, like, TT or something, and then we can go for a big play next turn. We're going to go for the Mirage, draw 2. They've got Harpies, unfortunately. We've got IO, which will shut off our Mirage, though. We do that because we want the IO set up. We also want this ring live. So I feel pretty good about that. They are going to go Prio here and pop our BLS, which is quite unfortunate. They're going to hit into our Serpent. We are fine with Serpent dying. We get it back next turn. Although we do forget to bring it back. So, you know, that is not the best play on our part here. We should bring back the Serpent. But unfortunately, we do not. We're just going to attack in to their tribe and banish the Faith to get a light out of their grave. We're going to set this Mirror Force here, pass back to our opponent. They're going to draw here. They're going to bring out a Kaiku of their own and attack into our Kaiku. Now, we fire Ring here. I think I actually should have fired the Mirror Force, as Mirror Force is a bit more situational. And, you know, it's a 1-for-1 trade either way. Ring is a bit more flexible. So, yeah, I think going for the Ring here was a mistake. But I wanted to sort of get more damage in on them to go for a big push. We're going to pay another 7 to keep that IO up. We're going to bring out this Sangan here. Attack in for 2,800. That's half their life points, so we feel very good about that. We're going to banish the Kaiku and the tribe out of their graveyard, set a Torrential Tribute here, pass back to our opponent, and they're going to set 1 pass back to us. Given they now have a set, we're going to let the IO go. And this time we actually purposely don't bring back the Serpent, as we want to get more draws off the Mirage. We're going to go for this Nobleman of Karaza here, banish their Deed War Lady, attack in for 2,800 here. We could have summoned out the tribe, but that plays a bit too much into TT, so I didn't want to do that. We're going to go for Forceful here, see what they're working with, and they've got a Geki and a Lily. I mean, Lily's dead here, but we debated sending it back just for maximum emotional damage. But we're going to send back the Geki. We'll be good. And we feel very good about this. We basically won the game at this point. They're going to draw here. Mirage will draw us some cards, so we're going to draw 3 off that Mirage. We draw an MST to out the Mirage as well, plus a CED too. They're going to go for a Mirage of their own, and then they're going to think about this a bit, and they're going to bring out Lily, try and go end the game on their own terms. We're not going to let them do that. We're going to go for TT here, pop the entire board, get a search off Sangan, and feel very good about this. So they got 1 card remaining in hand. But, I mean, that was not the correct play. I should just let it go through. But it's the funnier play. And we win here either way. So we draw. Now, we could fire the MST on our own Mirage. That's the better thing to do, because then we could banish out CED, probably use its effect, and kill them through the damage and CED. But MST their own Mirage, because, again, maximum psychological damage here. We add back the Serpent to insulate our Mirage discards. We will discard 3 here. No matter what 3 get pitched off Mirage, we have a monster that can win us the game here. Unfortunately, they do send the CED, so we can't actually go for that. But yeah, we're going to bring out a Tribe or Warrior Lady, and that can win the game here either way. So we got back Serpent. We attack in for 1,500 off the Warrior Lady, and it looks like they just had a Chaos Sork in hand, which was quite dead with no lights and darks in graveyard. That Kaiku put in a lot of work against that Sork. But that will be the end of the game here. So, I really liked the sort of knocks in the deck. I'm not sure if maybe they're main deck worthy, but I do think that over Duo and Premat, I prefer them. But this isn't the only game that I got with this deck. It's good to get multiple matches with it. So I also had a game against a bit more of a jank strategy, but a game that was still very fun nonetheless. Okay, we got a game against Hoy here, another frequent guest on the channel. Always a pleasure to have them on. We're going to go for Rock, beating over their Scissors, and we are going first. And this will be quite the hand to go first. We got Forceful Duo, and we got Comfy as well. All 3 hand rips. Almost never happens, but when it does, I mean, that is crazy. Now, the correct sequence to do if you draw all 3 hand rips on the first turn, you start with Forceful in case they've got Sinister Serpent. See their hand. It looks like they don't have Serpent, so we can sort of take a pick of a very good card here. We want to send back the Comfy, because Comfy is a bit of a late game brick. And also we don't want them getting hand knowledge on our hand here, especially with Witch of the Black Forest in hand. So we send back that Comfy. They shuffle up the deck. Now we go for Duo. Get 2 random hits out of their hand. And then we can Comfy the last remaining best card in their hand. So we're going to go for Comfy as well here. And we get to see their hand now. Looks like they've got Saku and Wall. We don't really have a good way to deal with Wall. So we're just going to send the Wall. And we feel very good about this. we can just bring out Witch here, set this call, pass back to our opponent. If they've got MST for the call, it's kind of unfortunate, but also that means that we know that they've got a Saku left, and we feel fine about that. They're going to set one, pass back to us. We draw an MST here. We bring out Kaiku, and now we're going to attack in for 2,900 here. And that will indeed go through. We're going to banish 2 from their grave, attack him with the Witch. Now, we could have potentially blind MST'd their back row in case it was something like Saku, which we do know they have. But I feel fine with this. If they Saku the Kaiku, we can always call it back. So I think this is ultimately okay. We're going to pass back to them. They're going to set 2, pass back to us. We draw a Ring of Destruction here. We're going to just try and hit in for 2,900 again. They've got Saku for that. We're going to attack in with the Witch here. Now, we could potentially call back the Kaiku and put them on a 2-turn clock. But I don't really feel like we have to do that. We can save the call for later. We're going to set an MST here, pass back to them. They're going to go for Forceful here, sending back the Ring. So maybe I should have set the Ring instead. Ring is much more versatile card than this MST. But I think it's ultimately fine. They're going to pass back to us. We attack in with the Witch again, dealing another 1,100. And now we're going to call, just, try and get in with the Kaiku, make it so that, they lose to 1,100 points of damage. Unfortunately, they've got another Sakura 2 armor, so calling back the Kaiku earlier actually wouldn't have helped either. But yeah, this is still fine. We keep the Snatch in hand. We could have potentially said it, but I mean, it's not really going to come up at this point, probably. We draw Graceful. We're going to go for Graceful here. Draw 3, and that's a really good draws there. We're going to pitch the Snatch and the Mirage, and pitching the Mirage may seem weird, given them got this MST for the Mirage. But I feel like Io plus Sangan is good enough, as bringing out the Sangan puts them on a 2-turn clock. If they clear our board, then we get searches as well. And Io can shut down any powerful spells that they've got. We're going to set that Io, pass back to them. They've got MST just to see what our back row is. We've got the Io here. We're just going to fire that to shut off any powerful spells they might have. And they're going to use Ring, go out on their own terms, potching a Witch or a Sangan. They're going to choose the Witch, and so that will indeed end the game, because Ring can indeed cause game losses at this point in time. So that'll be the end of game 1. I mean, we kind of sacked our opponent with triple hand rips, and we were just able to lock down the board from that point, which is, an argument for keeping Duo in the deck. But since we're going second, there's more reason to cut Duo. So we're going to cut Duo, we're going to cut Premat, bring in the double knocks. And I feel like this should be pretty good. Knock is especially good against their deck, given that they're playing a bunch of walls like, Wall of Illusion. So, I feel like the knock will get some value here. So we're going to be going second here, as we did win game 1. And we draw a pretty monster-heavy opening hand, but these are powerful monsters, so I'm ultimately fine with it. They're going to go for Pod here, set 2, pass back to us. We draw a Graceful Charity, which is pretty good. We're going to bring out this Break of the Magical Warrior to pop their back row before we commit into the Graceful in case it's something like an Io, and it is indeed an Io, so I'm glad I did that. We're going to go for Graceful here. We're going to pitch a Shining Angel and a Sangan just to get Chaos typing in Grave. Now we're going to go for the knock on their wall. We're going to attack in with 1,600 for the breaker there. Now we're going to set an Io, pass back to them. Now, if they've got a Kaiku, then this could be pretty rough for us. They've got MSC, so we're just going to chain the Io, keep it up. And unfortunately, they do indeed have the Kaiku there. So they're going to hit in for 200, banish the Light and Dark from a grave. And that's kind of rough. I mean, we got the Warrior Lady to serve as a light, but I think we more so want to use it to banish their Kaiku. We're going to set the Warrior Lady, pass back to them. They're going to hit in to our Warrior Lady. Both those are going to get banished there. They're going to set one, pass back to us. We draw Dark Hole, so that can potentially clear their monster, but we don't necessarily want to go for that yet. I'm going to get more value off the Dark Hole. So what we're going to do here is we're going to set the Serpent, pass back to them. And they're going to set another monster, which plays perfectly into our Dark Hole here. We're going to let the Io go, and now we're going to Dark Hole. If they've got, like, Dark monsters or Light monsters there, then we can bring out Kaiku and banish those. Unfortunately, they've got one Dark monster, but the other is just an Earth. Glad we hit the Fiber Jar, though. So now, the initial plan was to go for Kaiku and hit in. I don't think that's a bad move, but I do think that something out Witch at this point is actually the better play here. As if they want to go for a Chaos Monster, they got to get the Light and Grave. We got Kaiku for when that happens. If they've got, like, Change of Heart or a way to get Kaiku on their side of the field, then we don't want to lose the monsters in our own graveyard. So I feel like Witch is the better play here. I go for the Kaiku because I'm greedy and I want to banish more cards from their graveyard. But I do think this comes back to bite me here. We're going to pass back to them, and they will bring out this Lily. They're going to fire a Raigeki on our Kaiku, and then go for Reborn on our Kaiku. So that is a way to take control of our Kaiku here, banish the monsters from grave. Now our Reborn is dead. So another reason why potentially not to do this is that I could have potentially added, Reborned a Wall of Illusion, and, had a defensive wall that is annoying for them to get over with Lily. So I think I really misplayed by summing out the Kaiku, and it does show that, misplays are a thing that can happen in this format, right? Like, it's not just people sacking each other and playing with these broken cards. You do actually have to think through your plays and make sure that you're making the right ones. We're going to go for MST on their back row, just to get more information on what they're working with. It's a Saku, though, so, that's information we already had, and that's going to be the end of the game. Nothing we could really do there. We could potentially summoned out Witch, crashed into Kaiku, and then gotten a search and then gone for Reborn on something. But, I mean, that is very, very cope. And with Kaiku on field, we can't even do any Chaos plays. So that's going to be the end of that game here. We're going to go into game 3 going first. I make one more siding change. I side out Serpent for Rhoda because I figured Rhoda can get us into Exiled Force, which can pop their walls more easily. And also Serpent is not quite as good against a slower deck like this one. I mean, it might be better against a slower deck like this one than a more aggressive deck, but I still feel like it's fine to cut the Serpent for a Rhoda here. But we go for Comfy here. We see what they're working with, and they've got a Graceful Charity, Injection Fairy, Kelbeck, Fiber Jar, and Kelbeck. Now, Graceful Charity is the most threatening card here, so we have to rip that out of the hand. But knowing the rest of the cards in their hand is very, very useful here, as we can sort of play around those to the best of our ability. So we're going to send the Graceful Charity there. And now knowing what they've got, we can sort of set up for later turns. We're going to set this DD Warrior Lady here, set the TT, pass back to them. If they go for, like, Lily, we can just let that go through and have them hit over our Warrior Lady, banish both. But if they don't, we've got TT. We can flip up the Warrior Lady, potentially TT the board in a worst-case scenario where we don't use Exiled Force to hit a Fiber Jar. But hopefully that set is the Fiber Jar, and we can just go for Exiled Force on it. We're going to blind MST their back row. This is a little bit risky in case they've got an MST of their own. Then we lose the TT. But I feel like it's good to do this in case they've got like a TT set. We want to keep our Warrior Lady up, as it is a good beater and also can deal with problematic monsters. It's an IO though, and that is perfectly fine by us. We're just going to summon Exile, pop their Fiber Jar there, and attack in for 1500. We're going to pass back to them, and I feel really good about this. Again, if they bring out Lily and hit over our Warrior Lady, then that's fine. Looks like they're just going to set one, though, and set another pass back to us. Now, we know that that has to be a Kelbeck, as the 2 remaining cards in hand are Kelbeck and Lily. The Spell Trap must be the new card there. We're just going to bring up Breaker, pop their Spell Trap, given that we do know that they're on Saku, and it is indeed a Saku. And now we can actually do a pretty clever play. We can attack over their set with Breaker. If it's Lily, Breaker clears it. If it's not, then Breaker comes back to hand. We get to use its effect again on the next turn, and that is really, really good for us. So, we do take 200 from that, but that's ultimately fine. We're going to attack in to their Kelbeck with the Warrior Lady. We do take some 300 here, but it does clear the Kelbeck, and now they've only got one more Kelbeck in hand. So, I feel like this is ultimately fine. It also makes our TT play a little bit better in case they bring out a Lily. Now, this is a bit risky because if they draw like an MST here, they can MST our TT, then bring out Lily, attack in for 34. But I still feel like that is ultimately okay in the long run. They're going to bring out a Kelbeck here and attack in for 1500, and that is ultimately fine by us. We don't need to TT that. And we draw a Painful choice here, which is really, really good. We're going to go for Painful here. We're going to send Shining Angels, Forceful, Witch, and Sangan just to set up Light and Darks in Grave. And, they're probably going to give us Angel here, as Angel is the weakest monster that we got there. And this actually opens up another play where we can sort of summon an Angel, attack into Kelbeck, bring out Warrior Lady. We can also do that into a Lily, which would be annoying for them if we don't TT their Lily. But yeah, we're just going to bring out Breaker, attack into the Kelbeck there. Deal 400, Breaker bounces back to hand. Now we got its effect for later. And we're just going to set this MST, pass back to them. This is to play around if they've got MST of their own. If they've got Harpies, we're in kind of a rough spot here either way. And also they won't have a back row for the MST. They're going to bring out a Lily here. We're just going to TT that, and they're going to pass back to us. We draw Harpies, so we've got Spell and Trap removal out the wazoo. We're going to bring out a Lily of our own, attack in for 34, and this gets them right down to the 2,000 threshold. So that means even if they've got a Reborn for their Lily, or they change for our Lily, then we're fine because they can't actually use the effect. We are just going to pass back to them now and see what they do. And it looks like they are just going to set one, pass back to us, and we draw Monster Reborn, which is about the best thing we could have drawn there. We're going to Reborn back our Exiled Force here, and then we can pop their set. It's just a Yata, and this will be the end of the game here. So that'll be it. It looks like they just had a BLS and a Scientist, none of which could actually do much on this board. But yeah, that's sometimes how these games go. Sometimes, you can just lock down your opponent early, and they won't really have a way to get out of it. But again, misplays can indeed happen in this format as well. And there are back and forth games. Like, I think game 3 of the first match was pretty back and forth. And, you know, especially against more meta decks, the games are a lot more back and forth because Chaos does just eat more jank strategies alive. It's just so overpowered. And it's not to say that jank strategy can't win here and there, because game 2, you know, our opponent did win. Now, we did misplay, but they did indeed win using Raigeki, you know, Reborn, things like that. But that's oftentimes more because the jank decks also play a suite of very powerful cards than like on their own merits. But, you know, it's still worth experimenting with jank in this format. So I do hope that Hoy continues to experiment with this sort of hand bouncing strategy, maybe using things like DD Designator and stuff like that. But that's going to do it for the games in this video. You know, it's always good to test out the winning list from the previous tournaments to see what changes you might want to make. And playing this list, I definitely have some changes that I want to make to the Chaos deck in the future, but that'll be a subject of a future video. I hope that you enjoyed this video. As always, if you enjoy this sort of gameplay content, then definitely do subscribe to the channel. I'm going to have a lot more Chaos games coming. Also, if you want to support me directly, you can sign up for the Patreon, where you'll be able to get exclusive perks, like getting your name shouted out in these videos, which, speaking of, shoutouts to Rincewind, GMYFS, and Bren Donker for, you know, supporting me on Patreon. It really means a lot to me and helps me make these videos more. Also, you know, there are tiers for exclusive videos and, you know, video suggestions and stuff. So definitely do that if you're interested in that sort of thing. But, you know, let me know what you think of this deck and the format down below in the comments. And leave a like in the video if you enjoyed it. And until next time, I've been Ben from YGO from Zero, and I'm signing off.